I'm Michael Choi, and today I'm going to share with you the main steps that are in my vendor auction meeting. I generally like to do them 1 or 2 days before the actual auction. Okay, so the first step is, well actually I make sure that they're happy with everything, cover anything that they want. I then say, okay, well today is our meeting and I'm going to discuss everything that's going to happen, strategies for auction day, and I just want to answer a lot of your questions that you might have. And by the end of the meeting you should be in a good position to feel comfortable and make sure that you're okay for the auction. Okay, then I cover marketing to date, so I'll talk about absolutely all the marketing, internet hits, the papers, the fact that if anyone was looking for a house like this, that they know this is for sale. And they've either come to the house because of the advertisement and liked it, come to the house because of the advertisement and not liked it, saw the advertisement and didn't like the house because it didn't suit their needs. But the main core element is that I get the client to agree with me that everyone knows the house is for sale, so whatever happens on auction day, that's market value. Vendor reports, we do weekly vendor written reports, high detail, everything about every single buyer, where the buyers are coming from, the price ranges, what medium the buyers are reading, and we do a market wrap. So we do a whole campaign wrap and we go through that in detail so the buyers know the vendors intimately, okay? Possible outcomes, so there's a few possible outcomes that can happen in an auction. One is we get no bids, and if that's the case we just have to put a vendor bid in and pass the property in. The second thing, outcome, we could have heaps of bids, hit the reserve and just keep on going, and I squeeze that fruit until the pip falls out, okay? The third outcome is that we get bids up to here, which is just under your reserve price, and then I refer to you to see if you're happy to take that price that's on the marketplace, the price that's on the floor at the moment. So 3 possible scenarios: heaps of bids, we hit your reserve where we just sail through; no bids, we pass the property in; or some bids but it's not to your benchmark. I talk about what a vendor bid is. I explain a vendor bid. Bidding to start at a low range. Most of our auctions, especially if we have a lot of buyers, I like to start them lowish, okay? So if it's a $500,000 house, I'd start at 400 or 350 even. I don't mind too much. Something sensible though. And I'll talk about this. The two main reasons. I'll talk about what I like to do is I like to get 3 bids from each serious buyer, which will allow me to read their character. Yes, a lot of these bidders I already know because they've bid at other auctions, but I still like to get 3 bids to see their character and their strategy. So one strategy might be not to bid at all. One strategy might be to bid quickly and scare other buyers off. One strategy might be to cut the auctioneer down, so cut the increments down to make them smaller. Another strategy just to be slow. They might wait for me to trial close, pretend I'm about to sell before they actually bid. So there's all these different strategies, there's all these different hats that a bidder will use, and I need to see a few bids from each of these buyers before I know their character, so that when the bid's held against them, so there's a high bidder there and they're held against them, I know what to do to that buyer to make them bid. And that's why I like to start low, so I can read their character, remember their character, and use it during the auction. Another thing is vibe. Vibe is so important. So we've all been to auctions where the auctioneer goes, who's going to give me an opening bid? Nobody gives a bid. Everyone starts going, what's wrong with the house, blah, 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 no one's bidding, and it's awkward. Okay? There's a silence in the air and it's just awkward. So I try to take that awkwardness out. During the open for inspection, half an hour before the auction, my team sets up what we call the alphabet, A, B and C. So we have an A buyer, a B buyer, a C buyer. They're legitimate, serious buyers that are interested in the house, and we get them to start off the auction. So say it's a $500,000 property, for example, we might get someone to open up at 380, so that'll be A, 400, which will be, and 420, which will be C. So when I say who's going to give me an opening bid, where do we go? 400, 380, 400, 420, bang, bang, bang. And that distills confidence in the crowd and confidence in the rest of the buyers. What it also does is, it's a bit embarrassing if you're a buyer that's bid on a property that's worth roughly 500,000, you bid to 400 and you don't go any more. So it alleviates the problem of people not bidding, because it's embarrassing, like, well, what, you actually thought you were going to get it for 400? Surely not. Well, that's what the other crowd will think, and so that makes that person continue to bid. So we get them to start the auction, get that avalanche going, and it builds and builds and builds, okay? So that's A, B and C. Neighbours, why they're good. Sometimes owners are a little bit, they prefer neighbours not to be there, and I explain why neighbours are good. It's good in the sense of it's a renter crowd, it provides energy, it adds to the vibe, and secondly, it makes me accountable because my next listing is in the crowd. I need to make sure that I milk that buyer and we get the maximum price for the client because I'm doing a listing presentation to the whole street. So neighbours are good. They want neighbours to be there. Get as many people as you can come. Okay, why we want to sell. So I talk about the reasons why you actually want to sell on auction day. So what actually happens is I talk about the fact that it's unconditional, that that we can dictate terms, the fact that we're in a powerful position, and you just prefer not to be the property that passed in. So ideally you're in control. You want to be in the front foot and you want to control the market, you want to sell on auction day. I also talk about why they want to sell, just so that they know why they want to sell, but just to continue that conversation. Two strategies. The owner, we have plenty of strategies, as you can see just from the ABC, but we've got heaps and heaps of strategies, and I don't explain all the strategies to the client, but I explain the two strategies that they have control over. One is presentation. They need the house to look immaculate. The other strategy is their reserve price. And I say, do you know what a reserve price is? That segues into that. So I define the meaning, I give the definition of reserve price and the fact that it's on the market. So the reserve price on the market means the same thing. I say a reserve price is basically if you were to open up the dictionary, not that this is the case, but if you hypothetically to open up the dictionary, reserve price, right next to it, it would say your reluctant sellout figure in order to get a sale. It will be your unhappy sellout figure. So it's not your goal price, it's not your dream price, it's your reluctant sellout figure. It's your strategy. I call it a strategic reserve. So I don't just say what's your reserve. Every time I talk to a client about a reserve price, I say what is your strategic reserve. Okay? So I'll talk a little bit about that. I'll talk about referral. So that's one of the possible outcomes here. So I'll talk about referring, pausing the auction and what happens there. I'll talk about how it's best not to have a referral, because of emotion and logic, which is in one of my previous videos. People buy with emotion and they buy with logic. An emotional price is a higher price, a logical price is a lower price. The more time you give someone, hence me referring, pausing the auction, the more time you give someone, the more logical their price will be, or the more logically they will think, so the lower the price will go. So ideally we don't want to refer, because then that gives buyers time to think, which means the price is lowered. So, but if we have to have one, it must be quick. Okay, so I say, ideally we don't want to refer, so sometimes vendors say, have a price that they give the agent, really knowing that their price is here, and I say it's quite dangerous to do that because that means I'm referring to you, which means we're giving the buyers logic, okay? The paralysis that we call logic. What is your strategic reserve? So I ask them the question and we talk about that. And then I say, if I had X, which is under their strategic reserve, would you want me to refer to you? It's important for the agent to know to seek instructions at that point in time. I'll talk about us possibly passing in the property over reserve. Okay, passing the property in over reserve. I reckon once a month at least we pass a property in that's over reserve. And we only do that two cases. One, if it's in the best interest of the vendor, and secondly, if we've got permission from the vendor to do that. So I might have a buyer that's gone bang, 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 they're bidding really quickly, and this buyer's bidding slowly. So it's bang, bid, bang, bid. Generally when that happens, that buyer's got more coin, okay? They've got a little bit more cash. And if they're the highest bidder, generally that buyer's got more money, okay? So what I will first do is I will pause the auction. I'll walk up to the buyer and say, look, I want to give you a little bit more privacy. Say the figures at here. I'll say to them that the owner would ideally like here, which is true, the owner would like anything up here. And I will say to them, can you give me that, etc., etc., etc. And generally I try to get them to bid on top of themselves, okay, before I put it on the market. So if you've got a quick bidder, it's very important to at least try. If you don't try, the answer is always going to be no. It's very important to at least try to get them to bid on top of themselves, okay? Then once they've been on top of themselves, if you feel, depending on how you gauge the buyer and through your experience and gut instinct, then you talk to the client to see whether or not you want to pass in, because if you think there's more money in that buyer, you should pass the property in, okay? And see if you can get more. You need to explain the advantages and disadvantages to the vendor. The advantage to the vendor is that we could get more money from that buyer. The disadvantage is that you don't get to put it on the market and to see if there's anything else on the floor, because buyers have strategies. They can bid, they can not bid until the property's on the market, so there could be buyers that are out there on the market waiting for it to go on the market, I should say, and so you don't know. So you need to give the advantages and disadvantages to the client and then let them make up their decision. But it's always about doing what's best in the vendor. Every decision that you make, every strategy that you take should be in the best interest of the client. Okay, so yeah, so we pass in a property probably once a month on that's over reserve, and we do that on purpose. But generally, we just get the buyer to bid on top of themselves. So we at least do that probably every 2 to 3 weeks. Get the buyer to bid on top of themselves. We auction probably anywhere between 2 to 5 auctions a Saturday. So not a lot, but enough. Run-to figure. This is important. A run-to figure, so basically I distill confidence in the vendor by talking about it's not all about us getting a sale on the day, it's about the best strategy for the client. But then I talk about a run-to figure as well. I say a run-to figure that's a figure that my agent can run into and talk to you to see whether or not you're happy to put it on the market. So in other words, I don't have to pause the auction, I don't have to let logic set into the buyer, because I'm still doing the auction, and one of the agents, the sales team, runs in and sees if they're happy with that price. So we find out the run-to figure. Vendors roll before and after the auction, so what they have to do. And probably the most important thing, guys, you need to let the client know that you're on their team. You're wearing the same jersey as them. You're singing from the same hymn book. You want the same thing as them. They want a record price, you want a record price because you want to get more listings in the area. You're on the same team, you need to work together. And I think too many agents go to auction meetings and they try and pressure the vendor and try and get the vendor down when you're on the same team as the client. They're going to be referring you for years to come. So it's very important that the owner knows without a doubt that you're on their team, because when they know that you're on their team, they can trust you. And when they can trust you, they will tell you everything, and then the auction will work great. Guys, I hope you enjoyed. I'm Michael Choi. Have any questions, give me a call once again, and keep watching the videos. Take care. Cheers.